Thanks for watching this short video on our latest release, which is a feature called non-project related entities. From the beginning of PPO, we've had the program, projects, and employee entities, but all other entities have been under projects. So hovering over the project menu item, you see all the entities that have been deployed, but these all relate to a project. So in order to add any record into any one of these entities, it needs to go back under a specific project. And what we've seen recently is more and more use of entities which are not related to projects. And therefore, we're releasing this feature called non-project related entities, where we're giving all clients 3 additional custom entities which are not related to projects that can be used. So this video is going to quickly touch on some of the use cases and how you go about doing that, so that we can explain how you can make use of this new feature. So the first use case is demand. A large number of our clients want to raise ideas or demands before they become a project. They have a portfolio management process or an ideation process, and what they want to do is be able to register those. Now, previously, your only option was to create a entity called ideas or demand and put it under projects, or to use the project registration screen for demand. With this new feature now, you're able to actually create a demand entity which sits outside of the project space, because it's a non-project related entity, to capture your demand. You'll also see that as part of this feature that we're releasing, you can now change the menu navigation between life cycles and employees. So anything between lifecycle and reporting, actually, you're able to change. And because demand comes before programs and projects, I've elected to put it here on the menu item so that I have a demand section. The functionality of the entity works exactly the same as all other entities on PPO. I'm able to add items into this entity. I'm able to access the information, do the normal edit, delete, view. I'm able to do multiple edit. So exactly the same functionality exists, down to the business rules, email events, down to the user group access. But now you're able to create these. How you set these up is under administration. If you go to entities, you'll have all your normal project related entities, and you'll now see a new filter called project related entity. If I switch this to no, what you will find is the program, project, and employee, there's 3 standard non-project entities that already exist. Approvals in this case, which has been set up, and I've got my 2 out of my 3 because the third one, demand, I've already implemented. So to switch on a new custom entity is a simply matter of selecting the entity you want to use and setting it up. Once you've activated the entity, you're then able to go and do the necessary configuration. Another use case, as I mentioned earlier, is exchange rates. So it's quite common for clients to have multi-currency set up, and then they need an exchange rate table in which they're able to convert these currencies so that all reporting on the portfolio level could, for example, be done in a standard currency. So typically what used to happen in the past is they would create a project-related entity called exchange rates. They would use an admin project and they would capture it underneath there. With this new feature, I would now be able to identify the custom entity I want to use, activate it like you would any of the other entities, and put it in use. That will now create for me a exchange rate custom entity, and by going to the standard user groups, identifying my user group, I would find that new entity, and I would now be able to give the necessary access. And because it's a non-project related entity, by default, it'll pop in there and other, and I'm now able to create and customize that entity. So it's not an entity that sits under the projects as with the others, it sits on the side, and I would go about the standard process of setting up and configuring that entity. So having identified the exchange rate entity under the administration data fields, I can now quickly go in and set it up. I'm just going to set up 1 or 2 just to give you a short indication. Title, maybe something like rate. And just by setting up those 2 fields, if I now go into my new non-project related entity, I would be able to go and record that. So the same functionality in how to configure, customize, set up my business rules, provide my access. I just now have the ability to create an exchange rate table which is not related to a project and therefore not required. Flipping back to my demand use case, I would add the demand, but there's no need to tie this demand to a project. So if we had an audit, for example, where they identified that maybe we should look at single sign-on, I can raise a demand for single sign-on, record the information that's required around the single sign-on. So having now completed the demand request, one of the features you'll notice that comes with this is the standard link documents. But what we've done to accommodate the fact that these custom entities are not part of a project, the document will fall under a new project that we've added to all client instances called non-project documents. So you can link the document like you would in the past, audit finding report for single sign-on for apps. Use the same functionality you would typically use. I've captured all the information relating to the document, submit. The document will be linked back to the item, and I'm then able to add my demand. So 2 use cases demonstrated in the video, the demand as well as the exchange rates. Another use case we see quite a bit of is the sprints. A lot of clients are moving to a hybrid delivery method where they are introducing agile ways of work, and some clients sprint within projects, but a lot of clients are moving to sprints across multiple projects. So that would be another simple use case where you'd be able to create a sprint entity, put all your work items or your features or your sprint tasks under that sprint, but the sprint is not related to a single project. If you're unsure whether or not you have specific entities that would work for this, please feel free to reach out to your success manager, log a ticket. We're more than willing to help you, and we hope that you find some good value out of this new feature that we've released.